Okay, so we'll just pick up where we left off. People will catch on. That
Sure.
is, in fact, the the mechanism that, or let us say, it is our experience of the drive of the chemistry that is expressed when the self-preservation mechanism is in full operation. And remember that
Mm.
it's almost like he's the biggest boss of the brain for most of the human being's life. And when he says panic mode, that means that the person panics. The human being does not have the ability to tell this self-preservation mechanism, wait a minute, there's nothing wrong here.
Mm.
Down. Okay.
Mm.
That's the state of the Dhamma. And that the biggest part of it has to do with understanding that I am not my feelings, which
Mm.
is that I am not the body, that the body can be injured, the body can be sick, but the mind, or I, whoever I am, does not have to feel bad because the body feels bad, because I'm not the body.
Mm.
Similarly, these feelings of anxiety and even despair are not me. I
Mm.
am not that feeling. And so
Mm.
when Ronnie and I were just discussing that, he drew it in the sense of this, that despair is an emptiness, it's a hollowness, but he is inserting the I into it. And so by doing it like that, that makes the despair actually my despair, which then it becomes me, which then means that the self preservation mechanism now can't distinguish between the despair and the anxiety and that which needs to be preserved or protected. And therefore, these feelings take over because they're there to protect us,
Mm.
even when we don't need protection,
Mm.
which is most of the time.
Mm.
Most of the time, the humans that I know are quite comfortable, not in any danger at all, and
Mm.
yet still freaked out about it. It's really amazing. And here you have an entire almost world population freaked out about coronavirus,
Mm.
when in fact there's some few simple procedures to take care of. And once you get those taken care of, and it depends upon the situation,
Yeah.
but you're at your school are not ready for masks, but when whether they're effective or not, somebody will eventually say you got to wear a mask, and then you would wear a mask. That your confidence is not going to overrule the reality of the moment. That's
Mm.
huge. But the other direction, okay, so the balance or the middle point is seeing the things the way that they really are, so that we can become strong and powerful based upon the reality without either hubris on one
Mm.
side or pride, and on the other side we have defeat, despair,
Mhm.
anguish, anxiety, and all of the stuff of the feelings of association with a loser.
Mm.
Okay, so um, we're working towards this middle path, and that middle path has to have the confidence that comes in the investigation of reality at best we can do. And so after you've done that, and you know what the situation really is, now you can assess the danger from wisdom rather than it being a panic attack.
Mhm.
And you're going to then start making much wiser decisions.
Yeah.
Like the Christians say after you die or whatever, or what if God came in right in front of you? What are you going to do? Well, introduce myself.
Oh dear.
Take things as they come, one little piece at a time, and to not go into panic about imaginary things. And so, while there is real danger, and there's also imaginary danger or imagined danger, still the gut reaction is the same, because the reptilian brain can't tell the difference.
Well,
Dangers
that's where
are
we need our human brain to kind of kick
that,
in and actually see things, try
as,
and, from our limited vantage point, have a more realistic understanding of the situation. And invariably, everything can calm down a bit, right?
actually so.
Yeah. But it is interesting though, the whole thing, the like society's reaction and like the stock markets and all of that, and the way the markets responded. And it does offer an interesting, without being at all catastrophizing or um, dominated by negative feelings. Which, as I say, I'm not. I've been practicing a lot in the last week. Practice is rich. There's a lot of joy. It's all good. It does make you think though, but this is, I think, a positive thing. It's like, where are you placing your stability, like upon what are you placing your, like, what is your rock, what is your stability, what is your foundation? And it does make, but that's quite a positive question.
In the Buddhist term, it would be, what is your refuge?
Yeah.
Where is home for you?
Yeah.
What's your foundation, or what's your what do they call it? Footstone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And that's been on my mind a fair bit actually in the last week. And it's been quite a kind of rich background question to have going. But there are some things which, so for example, not wishing to share my financial situation with the internet, but the fact that the stock market, the way the stock markets have reacted to the whole thing, a lot of money's been sort of wiped off in it's sort of my elderly father's money, and I had been anticipating using that to give my children a certain amount of limited but
When on Wednesday?
no, not on Wednesday, but at some point in the next 15 years, say. I was
Okay, all
hoping to
right.
wait. So hear me out. I was hoping to sort of use that money, and I've been. I mean, it's actually an interesting thing. I
Why don't
think
you
to.
use the money that you've got in 15 years rather than mourning over the loss of money that you didn't have now?
Yes, but the thing is, I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm mourning over it, but it's made me realize. I was like, let's say that isn't there, and I'm not able to provide that for my children. Then what? What if London? Because this is actually the virus is like it's small fries. Ultimately, in a year's time, there'll be a vaccine, and everyone will have realized
Are
that it
you
wasn't.
telling me how tenuous the existence is in our
Yes,
society? Yes,
yes.
right.
And
It
also how
is.
misplaced any sense of, it's okay because I own my flat, or, oh no, well, I'm safe because, of this, or, well,
They have
I'm,
to tell themselves a story so they wouldn't freak out with anxiety and despair instead.
yeah. But basically, I'm at this little
It
tipping point.
becomes their religion, it's their opiate.
Yes, yes. I feel like I'm at this tipping point where I'm in my relation to all of that, where on the one hand, it's like I'm trying to make sensible decisions for myself and my children and my family, and use and on the other hand, I'm going, actually, if I think about the long-term future, like 20 years, 30 years, like who knows what on earth is going to happen, to society. Really, we do live in uncertain times, and without catastrophizing, kind of makes me go, well, actually, I can't guarantee like the safety of my children. And just like little, for me personally, I feel like, with the exposure to the Dharma and the practice of the Dharma that I am doing, I feel okay. I feel safe. Like, I feel like there is some refuge, and that even if things really hit the fan, I feel like I could, you know, from moment to moment, I'd be able to find some peace. No doubt there would be ups and downs within that, and times where I felt really low and blah blah. But I feel like you know, something happened. The thing that actually does genuinely scare me is the thought of my children, which is sort of like another secret roundabout way of, it's almost slightly like narcissistic self, isn't it? Because it's like applying, I don't know. It's
Both of the sides are in there. In fact, one of the things that's actually quite good, wholesome, and valuable in the human being, and
mm,
it is so missed and known to be missed even by the courts when it's not there, is a father's love for his offspring and children. Now,
mm,
it can get out of hand, but in the way of nepotism, when we give a family member responsibility that we know that he can't handle, but at
mm,
least we know that he's intimidated by me enough that he'll do what I tell him to do.
mm,
Okay, that's where nepotism really goes wrong, and you can see that in the current administration. All
mm,
right, so, but other than that, family, especially here in Thailand, all of the security for each individual is wrapped up in their family. But the family
mm,
is the bottom line. In the West, there really is no bottom line. Our families cannot be supported, or can we cannot rely on our families to support us any more than they should rely upon me when they're down and out. Okay, and everybody's got that mentality, you see, and then everybody has an extra layer of terror that the Thais don't have. They've always
mm,
got a home to go to,
mm,
and that the family. When I'm talking about family, I should actually use the word extended family rather than nuclear family.
mm,
But in that regard, there's no such thing as a nuclear family in Thailand.
mm,
Whatever things you think is a nuclear family, oh, sorry. It depends upon how unnuclear he gets and starts to spread. Because, oh,
mm.
your sisters, yeah, they're in the nuclear family. Well, how about sister's mom? Yeah, Aunt Susie's in the nuclear family. And so you've got grannies and great grannies and people from all over. And that, in fact, that's how the villages originally were built up. That
Mm,
it was a family that moved into raw land and they just stayed there comfortably enough to where everybody in town is a relative of everybody else in town.
mm,
And so they have a natural security. They have a natural built in belonging at home. And that gives the ties, especially during the irregular off seasons of planting rice, that there's enough time off that everybody has a lot of leisure time. And
mm.
so in recent years, one of the things the Thais have done is each family will have one apartment in Bangkok. And at certain times of the year, that room is empty. Nobody's using it. At other times, they have to sleep in shifts because there's not enough floor room. But that's home for everybody when they live in Bangkok.
Mm,
And it's the family. When I ran across that, I was just really both impressed and blown away by how many Thais can get packed into one room.
mm,
And they're there because they're family.
mm,
They all know each other. They didn't
mm.
meet. That wasn't getting a roommate. That was, hey, come on, let's go together to Bangkok.
Mm,
I'll go. So um, that gives people a kind of security that I've seen that Americans don't have.
mm,
And so I will label that back to you then in the sense of your care for your daughters and the young ones around you is real. It's part
mm,
of your nature. It's actually instinctually built in that, and that you owe them that protection until they can protect themselves. So part of your job is to teach them how to how to be strong
mm,
and also how to collect together and get their strength from each other. And that this time of coronavirus is a good time to teach them that lesson
mm,
so that they can rely and count upon each other is that, Grandpa, I know you're sick, but I'm here for you, and I'll take care of you. Do you want to come live at my house, or do you
Trust me,
want to stay in?
Grandpa does not want to come because the children. That's the thing, is that the children actually are a bigger risk to Grandpa than anyone else. That's the
Okay, well,
children.
I understand. Thanks for telling
Yeah.
me that. I was under the impression that he was in a rest home, which makes him really vulnerable.
Oh no, no, no. He's in his own home, and we see him a lot.
Leave
We're
him
close
there.
with Grandpa. Yeah, yeah,
Call him.
exactly.
Don't visit.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Hopefully, he's got a cough at the moment that he's got in the last 5 days, and a headache, and an on and off very minor fever. And he's 83, but he has no other health issues. But he's hoping he's got it, because he's like, if this is it and I've got it, then I've got off pretty okay. But because the government, unlike pretty much every other developed country, aren't testing people just because they're symptomatic, he won't be able to find out.
Okay. Let's go after the important point.
Mm,
How's his breathing?
fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's one of the main symptoms. In fact, that's the problematic symptom of the coronavirus is that the human body goes through a process of trying to eliminate it. And the coronavirus, unlike some other viruses, see, some viruses are it gives people the reason to go to the bathroom really often
Mm,
because that's how the body is removing it. But
mm,
but others cause um, the lungs to fill up with moisture,
mm,
and so they begin to experience having trouble breathing.
mm,
Well, of course they're having trouble breathing. If your dad or grandpa starts to have trouble breathing, call me immediately and we'll go through all of this again, but I'll give you the preliminaries. His life depends upon it if he has got a breathing difficulty.
mm,
Because what people do is they get tired because it's difficult to breathe and they take a rest. And that especially can happen on morphine when the patient's on morphine to give his body a chance to rest. That's when they die, is because they're not getting enough oxygen at all.
mm,
And so those little tubes that they put in with oxygen and connects to a machine that goes thump 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 all night, you want to get him one of those for sure.
mm,
But then there's also the issue that he's got to start learning to breathe consciously. Even though he might have extra oxygen, still he needs to breathe dynamically so as to open the lungs to give the body a chance to using nature itself, which is that when air heats up by going into the body, its capacity for moisture increases immediately, and the new incoming air sucks quite a lot of moisture right out of the lungs.
mm.
Out you breathe, out it goes. And then you take in another good deep in breath, opening the lungs, and now you get the whole next layer of stuff out so that people can actually cure themselves of pneumonia within about 24 hours, but they
Mm.
have to keep breathing.
You said
Okay.
you did this yourself, didn't you? You had pneumonia a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I really put these things two and two together because I have had friends who have died and also important people in the sense of mostly his name was Emmanuel Sherman,
Mm.
and he was a Zen monk and a graphic artist. And so he's the one who did so much of the artwork around the spiritual theater at Wat Suan Mok. He's
Mm.
where all of that artwork comes from. And he died in 1962 right here at Wat Khao Tum, literally a kilometer as the crow flies from here.
Mm.
So, and he died of pneumonia because he didn't get the medicine that he needed, and he would be in deep jhana, which doesn't require much air. But if the lungs are not functioning when the body is shut down at that level, and the lungs are still not functioning, that's a recipe for not coming back out
Mm.
because then too much is shut down. So
Mm.
uh, uh, that's part of the way that you when when the when the monk or the Dhamma dude or the Jhana dude is ill, he should not be practicing that kind of stuff because it can kill him.
Mm.
That what you need to do, in fact, is stay back at the level of the first jhana, which is let's get this thing going, let's
Mm.
clean this out.
Energizing. Yeah.
Right, energizing, get things moving. Let's get this frontal cortex operating and whatnot. But the body is tired because it's sick. It got sick for the same reason it got pneumonia. And now the
Mm.
pneumonia is there, the breathing is very difficult to do. And so that's why the pneumonia is such a death knell. It wasn't the Spanish flu that killed everybody in 1918 through 20. It was
Mm.
pneumonia. That's still what it's known for, was a
Mm.
pneumonia crisis. So the Spanish flu, whatever it was, caused the same symptoms as the coronavirus is causing now. And that's one of the reasons why the medical people are so interested in getting enough what they're calling ventilators,
Mm.
which means we need to get these people oxygen. But
Mm.
there's another thing, and that is just write it down on a piece of paper and send it around to everybody. Keep breathing.
Mm.
That's what you need to do.
Good advice in pretty much every circumstance. Yeah, keep breathing.
Precisely so.
Um, but going back to this idea, I'm speaking to him
Watch
every
out.
day,
Listen,
twice a
watch
day, and
good.
he says he's got
Listen
this.
closely.
Yeah. But going back to this idea about like where we find our refuge and like how we balance being invested in the world, being loving in the world, being responsible in the world. I'm thinking primarily as a parent,
Mm-hmm.
how we balance that with a knowledge that there is no safety, no security. Well, there's no external security. There is no guarantee that everyone is going to be okay. Do you know what I mean? Like that, I sometimes find I find that balance a kind of difficult balance. Is that on the
Well,
one hand.
how could anybody not be okay?
Mm.
What are the judgments that humans put themselves through to come up with the idea of a bad outcome to be
Mm.
avoided?
Mm.
When in fact we all know that life is not to be taken seriously because you're not going to make it out alive anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
I suppose
And
holding that truth for oneself seems a lot easier than
your
holding
your
that truth for your
children are
children.
going to die too.
Yeah.
One of them may die in your arms. Are you ready for that?
Mm.
Mhm. Who knows what the future is going to be?
Mm.
Okay. So this actually gets at quite deeply, and it actually goes off in a slightly different direction of taking refuge. So let's see if we can weave the two topics together.
Mm.
Uh, the taking of the refuge means kind of what is our home port. And I think that old men, when they retire, they realize that they have lost their home port
Mm.
because it was their job.
Mm.
Some people also have their home port as the church. My mom was especially that way.
Mm.
That was her home port, was the church. So sometimes we have ideas or concepts about what our home port is, and that in this case, what's happening is that as your um, let us say curiosity and investigation powers increase to see the nature of what reality is about to the best of your ability, and your abilities are improving. When we get to that point, we recognize that the way that the Buddha taught was done in such a way that many people would actually take refuge in that. And so that's part of the story, or part of uh, the repertoire of ceremonies that happen
Mm.
at a Buddhist temple on a regular basis, is taking refuge in the Buddha,
Mm-hmm.
trusting that he may have not been original on many of the points, but he put together the knowledge that was available to him at the time. He put together a working path that still works.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really noble truth that he came across, because it still bears out in time. There's other ways of talking about it, and there have been others who have come across also a path. Some of them are quite notable. I would understand that possibly the most recent one would be Tolle.
Mm-hmm.
What's his first name? I forget.
Eckhart. Eckhart
Eckhart
Tolle.
Tolle. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. In his whole concept of be here now. He
Mm.
figured that out for himself.
Mm.
He found out that he hurt so much that he had to stop. And so that would be the natural path. But what the path that he found, he then couldn't describe very well. And when he started to get famous, and when people wanted to know what he believed, and he had to read Buddha's books to put language to what his experience was.
Mm.
So, uh, what we're saying in this regard is that refuge is when we know that the teaching, or actually, that's the second one, is the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. So we take refuge in the Buddha, that the historical things are correct. And then we take refuge at the same time in the Dhamma, in the sense of the teachings of the Buddha that are eternal and are part of real noble truth, because they were actually able to outlast the Buddha himself. They're
Mm.
still strong. They're still there. They're still capable of doing their job, and that many people um, gain the benefit of it, and that benefit becomes evident to oneself and to see others. Once you see what and to know what you're looking for, you can see those qualities in others also, which is in fact leading into the third one, is taking refuge into the Sangha, means that you understand it on several levels. The first level would be um, sort of the Western loosey goosey way of looking at it, in the sense that anybody who opens a building with the word Buddhism on the door, um, and anybody who comes in then is called the Sangha.
Mm.
That's all you need for the definition of what the Sangha is. People come to the place. All right. The second then way to look at it would be taking refuge, rather than just any old thing, but to take refuge in the actual Sangha that the Buddha set up, and use the actual definition of the term, because the Sangha still is the uh, both official and unofficial and actual container for the Dhamma, and by extension, the Buddha himself. That the fact that there is a Sangha, here's something really surprising, by the way. We're talking about currently on the world now about 6 million ordained members of the Sangha. That's bigger than any army on the planet Earth, with literally millions in India,
Six
some of
million
them
ordained. But there
6
were.
million ordained, and we're talking about across China, Japan, Thailand,
My
even
gosh.
Malaysia, Indonesia, Sri Lanka. I mean, Thailand has got like 600,000. If
I
Thailand
see.
alone's got 600,000, then we're talking about we can reach 6 million,
Yeah.
because that's
Wow.
10% right there in Thailand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so in that regard, it's massive, and that by bringing our mind open in the Dhamma, so that we have really extraordinary right view, we can see that all 6 million of us are in a family. We're in a club. And that club is important because our job is to preserve and keep the Dhamma going into the future. That the Buddha's point was, why does he teach the Dhamma? His answer was, why he teaches is for the benefit of future generations. And so that's exactly why I'm here. That's why Achan Po has me on the internet, is let's put this stuff out there, because this old body's going to be dead, but maybe some of the videos will make it. And so it depends on YouTube. Go YouTube, go YouTube. So in that way, we have this huge Sangha that we can count on, but we can also count on it at the local level. In other words, wherever I walk into, especially as a monk in the robes, whatever temple I ever walked into, I was welcome. That's just naturally how it is. And that then the monk has actually got to do something bad or have a bad reputation before anything will be suspicious started, or whatever, that he's accepted for his behavior. Okay. So now there's a third use of taking refuge, and that is the Sangha of nobles. Once you begin to know what nobility is, then we have now a higher standard of who our friends are going to be, because we're looking for noble friends. And I'll tell you, I found a lot on the internet. There's a lot of nobility out there now. And so it spreads. And I think that the teaching spreads kind of naturally. That the kind of teaching that I'm giving is now available to you on the internet that wasn't 20 years ago.
Sure.
But now that it's available, you're getting great benefit from this, and I'm getting great joy for letting on. So we're both the winners in this. So this is the new or next kind of refuge, is to take it among that group of nobles, so that you know that you're not alone in this, that there are others who really do understand the nature of reality. And so it's kind of like an inner club. I was actually quite surprised, because to my original understanding, when I first started understanding what Bhikkhu Buddhadasa was about, I considered him unique and alone. And slowly over time, I began to say that, see it this way, that, wow, look at the profound effect he's had on Thailand. Now all the Thai people have available to them the teaching of the Buddha. But it wasn't until I got to the United States when I, by happenstance, ran across nobles in the Laotian tradition who have never heard of Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, but they still have the noble Dhamma. And that was a big surprise to me, to find out that there are nobles actually all over the United States. Just most of them don't speak English. Most of them don't even care to learn to speak English, and they're not out there looking for donations. They don't advertise. But if any Westerner stumbles his way into one of these places, he'll be welcome. And if you ask the right questions, you'll get the right answers. That's just mind-blowing that that the club is actually that dense, and yet the Westerners, they go after what's advertised, and they pay the fees that these Dhamma teachers want, and basically these guys are making a living out of it. That I really appreciate Tucker Peck, because he has other ways of making a living, so that the Dhamma teaching that he does, he can do it gratis. It's one of the reasons that I'm drawn to him, to where many others are out there with meditation retreats for $2,000 plus. I just find that so amazing. That's just unbelievable that they're going to charge that much and expect anybody. I would expect everybody to show up, and when it comes time to pay the fee, Everybody, each student, one at a time says, "Oh, please, I don't have the money. This is way too much. I really want to do your retreat, but I just can't afford it. Please don't send me away. I'm going to stay, okay? I do have this much, though, and I'd be willing to contribute this much."
Mm,
Okay. So uh, basically taking the price tag off of it. But
mm,
the noble Sangha is not going to be charging money at all. That's not the
mm,
way that the Dhamma works to them, because the Dhamma itself is too important to
mm,
cheapen it by trying to make a profit off of it.
mm,
So now we're talking about a deeper kind of refuge, and that deeper kind of refuge into that kind of Sangha requires deep understanding of the nobility of the Dhamma itself. So this is the level of refuge that's capable of one. But then at the last moment, just as the last breath, when he couldn't survive one more breath, the last thing he said was for the monks to become a refuge unto themselves.
mm.
That looks like he's throwing a complete monkey wrench into everything. But in fact, oh no, he's actually just reiterating, but taking the focus off of it.
Well, it's
Because
that interpenetration, right? Like the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, like for them to be meaningful, they need to be in here.
exactly. Okay,
Yeah.
because now the emphasis is upon refuge itself. Learn how to take refuge. Learn how to be part of the inner crowd. Learn how to be the one who is in charge of this place. That's the noble. Whenever you have a noble in the crowd, everybody pays attention to him. An example of that I just saw because of my talk with uh, Steve at Guru Viking was the movie, Mel Brooks movie called Dracula, Dead and Loving It. And the point about it in there, in that movie, is that when Dracula walked into a room full of society in Britain,
Mm,
all eyes were cast upon him.
mm,
He was the focus of everyone's attention immediately. Okay. This is what we're talking about as the lion. In that moment, even Dracula can become the lion. And this is the
mm.
lion of the Buddha. Who's the one that uh, people are attracted to because of their strength? And so this is part of then of the coming of the Buddha is that you begin to exude Buddha, that you're the one who's in charge here, and that that gives you actually the ability to easily designate authority because people will readily understand. Okay, so an example of that is the wife. In a sutta, one of the Buddha's suttas, it talks about advice to the Sotapan, and what his job is to give the house and all of the duties of the house and everything about the house, including the kids. It's the wife's business now. It's up to her.
You told me
Okay.
that a few months ago, and I've actually been using like my family dynamic and my relationship with my parenting partner and the mother of my children and my very close friend as a kind of opportunity. I'm really using our family relationship as an opportunity to practice like selflessness and just trying to be like, what do you need? What can I give you? What do you need? What can I give you? What do you
Mm-hmm.
need? What can I give you?
You've become the go-to guy.
And just all this resistance and all this selfishness has just dropped, and it is so it's so easy, and it's
How Buddha
all
you've become. I'm amazed.
well, work in progress, but it's
Certainly.
yeah,
Congratulations. Get that because it's worthwhile doing. And you can
yeah,
see that it's of value to your family.
hmm,
But if you didn't have this inner strength, if you did it from weakness, then people wouldn't buy it. The fact that
mm,
they're capable of making you the big cheese is because you can see yourself as the big cheese. You're the lion here. And we
But it's
started
also
by
there's like a
changing.
huge it's like a balance though, isn't it? It's like the the moving towards being less selfish has to come from a place of strength and not weakness, as you said. But in that move, it's a very um, humble move, right? And it's a very non-selfish move because you're putting you're it's not self-aggrandizing. It's not kind of like I'm the big cheese.
Right.
I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I'm not being very
Well,
articulate.
yes, you are. You're doing. There's many examples of what we're talking about here. One of them has the quality of is that um, only weakness is violent. That strength
Mm,
doesn't have to be violent.
mm,
Or like the karate master is very, very slow to get into the fight with the young buck. Or
mm,
in cowboy movies, that the old master who's been a gunslinger for years, he really doesn't want to fight this little guy, you know.
mm,
But the little guy, he's really, really eager because he wants to prove himself, which means he's still coming from a state of victim, wanting to be the
mm,
lion. And
mm.
so that's
Yes,
the
that need to assert need to assert yourself is actually the weakness, and it's what causes other people's sort of small selves to resist and emerge, and that's when you get
competition.
yeah. Whereas if one of you in a family dynamic or in a relationship at a time is able to completely dial down that self that needs to be asserted, the other person responds
They've
really
got
well
no,
to it.
they've got no rocks to climb on.
Exactly. So they drop it as well, and then everyone's just being lovely. So yeah, I listened to your advice, Dhammarato. You dropped that one a few months ago, just kind of quite offhand, but I've taken it to heart.
Excellent, excellent. So by doing that, now you're also beginning to answer the question about what responsibilities do you have. And I would say, first off, your responsibility to make it to the point where your children are adults.
Mm,
And I mean fully adults, that they've
mm,
actually grown up and can take care of themselves, and they darn well know they can.
mm,
That's about as far as you can go. That's what Kilbrand meant by your children are not your children.
mm,
That at best they're an arrow launched by your bow, but the bow does not own the arrow. That the
mm,
arrow finds its own path and it has to deal with its own wind, that all you can do is launch it. And after that, you have no control over it. So
mm.
that's the first point, is to recognize that your duties to your kids are not infinite. It's got, I don't know how old they are, but in some cases, it's going to be less than 10 years,
Yeah.
which is not long.
No, they're 7 and 4, but it's interesting that adulthood. I think it starts a bit later than most people think. I think the ancient Greeks, they saw you as a child until you were 15, an adolescent from 15 to 25, 26, even 27, and then adulthood started late 20s. This is kind of slightly we think that adulthood, in the West, the general age, you're an adult when you're 18, you can get
They
married, join the
can't
army.
figure it out. They
No,
just simply can't figure it out.
no, I
And not
think
only that, but the
mid
data is
20s is
really
more
complex.
realistic. Yeah,
I agree. In fact, I've even said that before, because
mm.
I have seen 25-year-olds and said, "Wait a minute, where's the diaper this kid?"
Yeah, yeah,
But somehow, after a while, they begin to mature. But many people, in fact, don't. It doesn't matter what age.
mm.
That
And
that the
sometimes the maturation is very rough. I feel like for me, when I was like 27 is when my daughter was born, and I was letting go of a protracted adolescence and trying to come into a next phase of my life as a father.
Time to grow up.
Yeah, and the process was not necessarily smooth and easy, and for about a year or so during that.
This is actually quite an important quality of all traditions, is this maturity. When is a child no longer a child? When is he an adult? And the answer that you gave, which is there also in many of the cultures, is there's an in-between time when he's neither a child nor is he yet an adult. And that we normally think of that as the teenage years in the West, but it can be longer than that. But it also can be, if we're looking at the right traits can be taught from childhood, so that the individual matures without, that is calling it a traumatic or heavy duty grow up. But rather that they've got the tools so that they can spring into action very, very well. An exact opposite of that would be Mozart, who was forced as a child by his father to play the piano and compose and do all of that. I think his dad had him on tour by the age of 4 or 5 and had him in the courts by the age of 9. And that's all he cared about. And he's dead at 35, but he was just nuts his whole life. And it's because of the way that he was raised, that the way that we raise our kids has a lot to do with it. And so looking for the quality of giving the kid responsibility. An example of that is, are you going to let the kids themselves operate the microwave? Okay. The adult part of our brain says, hey, yeah, kids can operate a microwave. I've never seen anybody ever get burned by a microwave. I've seen tennis shoes get pretty well messed up. Never done that. But I've never seen any human get burned or anything. So sure, if the kid can reach it and can open the door and put stuff in it and push the button, let him do it. But then the mom comes in the room and says, ah, because she associates the microwave with fire, and fire is dangerous, and you have to keep the kids away from fire. Okay. So these are the kind of things that we would talk about, is how you're going to raise your kids has to give them that fearless can-do that rubs off from you. And they'll grow up naturally, very fast, and very confident. In fact, in the movies, one of the examples of that is the woman who can manage a big farm or a ranch or do all kinds of things that would normally be called manly, but that she was raised by her father and her mother wasn't around. And so she was raised like a man with her dad there. She wound up being absolutely gaga gorgeous, so that everybody, both the audience and on set, is all agog by how beautiful she is. But she's got guts. She's tough. Okay. This is something that we can instill. And when I speak about it like that, it sounds crass, but really what we're talking about is confidence. That's what makes one mature, is that they are confident that they can handle a situation without freaking out and becoming a child again. And that can be taught as a skill by daddy. And you can ask her, I mean, are you a big, tough girl now? And you can ask her that when she's crying. When the kids cry, you can say, hey, is daddy crying? No, I'm not crying. You want me to cry with you, or are you going to be tough with me? And these are the kinds of, but you do it with that joyful voice. It's not an angry voice. It's not that they're doing something wrong, but that you're inviting them to be a big girl. You can handle this. giving them that confidence that we often don't give the kids because the adults around don't have it. But now that you're developing that confidence, you can share that too, because that's quite a gift to give to your kids, that they can be secure and tough and handle anything. Your daughters will need that most when the boys come. They'll have a leg up because most girls don't have that ability to take
Well,
care of
it's
themselves.
it's like confidence, isn't it? It's like the self-beliefs. Boys or girls who need the verification of the opposite sex to make them feel okay or feel like they're good or worthy are going to have a very difficult adolescence, because they're going to try and find value in how they are seen by members of the
Uh-huh.
opposite sex, and they're going to
And
be miserable, and they're going to put themselves in situations they shouldn't put themselves in, and all sorts of
that's
things.
the instinctual way to do it precisely. So you, as a wise father, a wise daddy, can point out to the girls, hey, you don't need that boy's permission to be beautiful. You're
Yeah,
beautiful right here by yourself. You don't need him for anything.
yeah,
Who's the boss here now, you or him?
yeah.
Who runs your feeling factory?
And similarly with boys, it's like, because I've got a daughter and a son. My son, it's like bringing him up, it's making him realize that it's not his prerogative to try and make girls like him by being a dick to them, which I think a lot of boys grow up seeing and grow up feeling like the only way I can get these girls' attention is by, and I see it at my school, I see it in the 11-year-olds that I teach. The boys don't know how to speak to the girls, so they just act like assholes, and it gets and then the girls get upset, and but it's a way of them, it's like it's like they can't figure out how to communicate with them.
That's what
So
they're doing is, in fact, they are communicating. They're
yeah,
figuring out how to communicate, but they're doing it at the 11-year-old level.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's where they could use some guidance.
Yeah, we try, we
Well,
try.
one of the things you can do with the boy after you see him in the hall treating a girl badly and seeing her reaction to it, you can actually just tease him right there on the spot. Ha ha! Look what you did, and look what it got you,
Mm,
and make him think about it. That didn't work, did it? You made her try something new.
mm,
Because if you don't offer him that possibility to try something new, he may get stuck in a rut
mm,
and treat women badly his whole life without
mm,
even ever having a clue.
mm,
11 years old is a really good time to point that out. And the way to do it is by teasing him about it.
mm.
Teasing works for kids, it works for adults too.
Yeah, it's, yeah. There's see, I think another I like the idea of teasing. Teasing works for children really well. It works for everyone really well. But something I sometimes do with the children, like with those like 11-year-olds, and we try and address it in the school. We meet and we're like, this is going on in the playground, what can we do? And sometimes we kind of even separate the boys and girls for a session, and the girls will be with some of the female teachers, and the female teachers will essentially speak to them about body image and about self-esteem and about things like this. And with
Oh, here's one for you. Whenever you do have to separate them, have the female teachers go with the boys,
That's interesting. Yeah.
and let the female teachers teach the boys what it feels like and all of that, so they can begin to see the girls human.
Yeah.
The same thing then with the
To
men. Go.
demystify the opposite
Hmm.
gender in that sense. That's
Right.
a really
So
interesting idea. Yeah. But one of the things we sort of speak about in those sessions is like getting boys to realize that like that the aggression or the kind of negative behavior towards girls to kind of get a response, like it's like masking a vulnerability. The vulnerability is I would really like that girl to notice me and speak to me, That would be nice. Do you know what I mean?
A
And it's like,
long series of whys
yeah.
will work wonders. Why? Why do you want her to see you?
Because he's got a biological imperative to be
Yeah, well, you might know
recognized
that
by
and
the other.
conceptualize it, but he has to feel it, and he has to deal with it on a feeling, non-conceptualized basis. So if you
Sure.
feed him your concept, he may not understand. But if you start asking him a series of why questions, he may get down to it. Which I really don't feel good about myself. I want her to make me feel better. And you can ask him then, well, why don't you just feel good? And then start spreading the Dhamma at that level. Because that's actually, it's really, really best when it's shared naturally like that. Especially when they're young, because then they can make the corrections easily rather than have to meditate for 5 years to get themselves out of it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? When you're at the when you're younger, those little, it's like a boat, right? Like a little tilt to the rudder at the right time can
Right.
set a completely different course.
And get
And
you
if,
right into what that you're looking for, right into your refuge.
yeah, whereas
Okay.
if you wait until you're mid to late 20s,
Mm-hmm.
you sometimes
Or
need
you
some more
make too much
sudden
of a rudder.
change. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so, yeah, that easy steering really helps, and you're in an excellent place to do it. That the way that you would spread Dhamma then would by being strong and capable in your surroundings. That you become the lion because of the self-confidence that you're gaining for being able to manage your own feelings. And that this coronavirus has been a very good test for you, and you passed that test. Congratulations. I mean, how many people do you know that are fearless in the face of coronavirus? So that's the kind of crowd you run with now. Think about it like that. That's unusual. That's rare. Probably not even one person at your school can be fearless in the face of coronavirus, doing what's needed, taking care of business, but is completely competent that I'll survive this even if it kills me. Fearless in the face of death. Exactly. That's actually a good way to put it. I'm going to survive this, whether it kills me. I'm going to do it. I can handle it. I'm a big boy now. I'm the dude here. I'm tough. And so, and basically what we're really pointing at is that I'm the boss of my own feelings. I'm the emperor of my own pile of dirt. And that an emperor who is actually the emperor of his pile of dirt is so unusual that it's noticeable by people from time to time while they're still half or deeply buried in their own pile of dirt. Because you give them kind of an idea that they too can be an emperor of their own pile of dirt also. So this is one of the ways of sparking that Dhamma, to spread it, that it can be seen and exhibited in people's behavior. And surprisingly enough, others see it in you, even when you don't see that they see it in you. That you see you see that other people see you the way that you thought that people have always seen you, rather than understanding how people actually do see you. And so that also takes an opening, because that's also part of becoming that lion. Because now you actually are on display, and you know you're on display, and that you're up to being on display, and you can handle it.
And you're living with integrity, so there's nothing to hide. There's no.
That's exactly it, right? You're living a life of integrity, a noble life, a life that is free from the kinds of things that people normally use when they're pointing fingers at somebody, and they can't find any of that stuff in you. So all of the stuff that they do throw at you doesn't really stick because it's not
Mm.
you.
Mm. Mm. Not you, not me, not mine. I'm starting to I'm starting to find, do you know what's interesting in practice at the moment? This is something that's going on in the last week. I'm starting to find at the tail end of the practice, it's like at the beginning of the practice, it's like building up to this place where joy can just like flood the body and staying with that, and then moving from that kind of energetic dynamic kind of flooding to like getting stiller and stiller and stiller and stiller, and then from there opening up again and sort of engaging more with like the fourth tetrad practices.
Mm-hmm.
And but then I'm now noticing that end of the practice, suddenly the joy just starts flooding again. And it's like every time there's this little release where there's like a feeling or a contraction, and just being able to kind of look at it and realize it's passing, it's not satisfactory, and it's not me and it's not mine. And seeing like one of those characteristics will often present itself in relation to the phenomenon that's presented itself. Like it'll be obvious that it's passing, it'll be obvious that it's arisen and passed, it'll be obvious that putting value on it is not going to be satisfactory, or it'll be obvious that this thing is not me or not mine. And suddenly, just like boom, there is this like release of joy again. And that end of the practice is now becoming just as flooded with joy as the kind of
It's all
first
it,
half.
mhm. It's all process oriented, and it's good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. And
Mm,
it's still, all of it is merely processing, just
mm,
living in this present moment with the best of our abilities, knowing that our abilities are actually proving that we're
mm,
skill developing, that we're getting better at this, and we're already pretty darn good at it. And so who knows where things are going to wind up. In fact, they don't ever wind up. They just always just keep getting better and better.
mm,
And eventually you'll come to the point, yeah, I can handle death. I can handle anything. I'm not afraid of anything anymore. And if we're not a fear of death, then what's worth being afraid of? And being afraid or being afraid of cat, that's what it's all about. That we want to get rid of or get away from. That the primary feeling at the bottom of the barrel is fear.
mm.
And so that's what that attitude of being a lion is all about. That feeling of um, not inconquerability, but I wouldn't even want to use the word the warrior's mentality, but rather the can do.
Mm.
The thought comes to mind right now of Rocky. I could have been a contender, was what he was saying. So that sounds like a loser rather than
Mm.
I am the contender. I'm in this. Like an example of that was what's his name? Uh, Cassius Clay turned Muhammad
Muhammad
Ali.
Ali, yeah.
Even though he had Parkinson's disease, and eventually he just got his head beat in too much.
Mm.
But on the way to getting his head beat in too much, he was the champion. That was a mentality that he never lost, even when he got to Parkinson, and everybody knew it and respected him, not necessarily for his talent, but for his attitude.
Mm.
That he was a king. He was a what did he call himself? I know the quote about dance like a butterfly and sting
Sting
like
like
a
a
bee.
bee. Yeah, there was
I
something
think,
else he called himself as well. I can't remember either.
yeah. But anyway, now we're pointing at the height of humanity, the very high quality of the noble that gives one the noble attitude. You do know that they took his title away from him and put him in jail.
Mm.
And you know why? He's a boxer now. He would not go to Vietnam. He would not be drafted into the army.
And he threw away like his medals, didn't he? Like maybe his Olympic medal. Like he rejected ultimately the society, like it's like that thing about self-value. He didn't need the value. He didn't need people to see him to feel worthy. He didn't need this medal. He didn't need society to say he was a hero. In fact, he could do something that went completely against the norms of that society by refusing to be conscripted. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is kind of a natural lion, this
Yeah.
quality that the Buddha had. Also, it's well known that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa was like that. There's just so many really weird stories about him, like making the high general of the army wait in line. That was that was a big deal for that army general because he normally took over whatever wadi he went to, and he did not get to do that. Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. Also, another one was the king of Thailand wanted to send a helicopter to pick him up and take him to good medical attention in Bangkok, and he refused. No, I'd rather die here. Thank you very much. I don't need your helicopter. So we're talking about that kind of strength that is rare among humanity, but that we can, in fact, practice it using a particular method or refuge. An example of the refuge that Muhammad Ali had was in his ability to box. That's how he demonstrated his warriorship, or his that was the expression of of his internal knowledge of being the lion or the king. Sometimes it happens in sports. It's more than likely going to happen sometimes in martial arts when the guy gets so many. An example of that is Bruce Lee. They killed Bruce Lee, but he felt confident enough to start letting some of the stuff out of Hong Kong and showing it in the movies in the West. And so that was the kind of confidence that got him killed, and it does. And sometimes it gets nobles killed when they do what they want to do because they're the lion. They do what they want to do because they know it's noble, it's correct, and it's right, even if other people don't like it very much. So in that regard, there's another way of looking at it, and that is that the noble becomes dedicated to the truth. Now, in our society, sometimes the truth is not appropriate. Sometimes it's downright important to lie. In fact, quite a lot of our political system is built upon lies. Donald Trump has done what, 14,000 in the past 3 years. I mean, he's really good at it, but he's just doing what everybody does. That much of our understanding of what is what is based upon a pack of lies. An example of that is they have no clue about an audit for the Pentagon, but they do know that they were very happy that all of the records were taken out when 9/11 happened, so that they didn't have to do an inventory or an accounting or whatever like that. So a lot of what's happening is false. It's a lie. And yet now you're becoming dedicated to the truth because you know that lies, like all ignorance, takes us away from the truth, away from reality, and towards suffering. And so we become dedicated now to telling the truth. And so the new job that we have to learn is when to tell the truth. Because let us say, history is strewn with the corpses of ill-timed wisdom.
Yeah.
That Jesus strolls into the temple, runs the money changers out, and within a week they'd nailed him up. Socrates goes around telling the youth of Athens not to join the army with with the politicians' newfound lust for a war with Sparta, and so Hemlock him.
Yeah.
You know, these stories are beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful stories. Okay, Galileo and many people will stand for the truth. That's part of being noble, is to be willing to stand up for the truth in the face of the danger of doing so. Because if you're no longer afraid of death, then what's a trivial telling the truth now and then got to do with it? And so we become more and more dedicated to the truth, only we have to actually now begin to have the wisdom of where's the right time to say it, etc. Because when we ill time and we tell the truth at the wrong time, it can get us into trouble.
Mm.
One of those moments was when Pontius Pilate asked JC, "Are you the Christ, or are you the Son of God?" I think was what the concept at that time was, and that would have been a good time to explain the Dhamma to him, but he didn't. He says, "That's what you say I am."
Mm.
Which was not a really good response because Pontius
No.
Pilate didn't understand it, that was actually the truth. All of these people are saying I'm the Son of God, but that's just the opening part of the tale. Let me tell you why they are mistaken and think I'm the Son of God. Or there's another way of looking at it. What does the word Son mean in the sense of Son of God? Because Jesus often referred to himself as Son of Man. That's all over the place. I would say that there is more occasions of Son of Man in the Gospels than Son of God. But the way that we use son of is like son of a gun, son of a bitch. Uh, and what it means is the association rather than literal.
Mm.
That the son of a bitch is a human being. He's not actually the son of
A female
bitch,
dog.
a
Yeah.
female dog, exactly. But he still is a son of a bitch. Or if he's a son of a gun, that just means that he's misbehaving or whatever. It doesn't mean that two guns got together, procreated, and I popped a bullet that's full blown into a gun.
Mm.
So, if this is an expression son of throughout all cultures, then Jesus is correct. In fact, we're all sons of God when we act and behave godly,
Mm.
because we're then of the quality of God. So, you're a son of God, I'm a son of God, and sometimes I'm the son of Satan, but mostly I'm the son of God. My choice. And so, this is also that quality of nobility that is linked in then with the quality of understanding what we're saying and telling the truth. That there's no mealy mouth about it, even if it's a bit dangerous. So we have to be careful about when we tell the truth and who to say it to. But that we actually are bound by our own refuge, because the truth is our refuge now.
Mm.
We can
But
see it
it'll
in
only be a refuge if we kind of are true to it or honor it.
exactly.
Mm.
And so let's say if there's a real storm and the ship leaves the harbor, which is his refuge, then he's got to deal with the storm. If he'd come out of the storm, he'd come back to the harbor, back to the refuge, and then he doesn't have to deal with the storm anymore. So this is how we see then the Dhamma as our refuge, our seeing the strength, because the strength in the Dhamma and the Sangha and taking refuge in the self, all of these things are just merely metaphors or concepts that are pointing to a feeling. And that feeling is actually based in the quality of success, that
Mm.
it's the right attitude, the attitude of can do.
It's interesting as well, the fearlessness you're talking about as well. It's kind of dependent on dropping a lot of the self, isn't it? Because if you are deeply,
What else is couldn't be
constantly
afraid?
investing in a illusory and constructed self, there's you're building an edifice that you have to protect. Whereas if you're letting that edifice gracefully let go, then it's much easier to not be fearful.
Right. What is it or who is it could be afraid? The answer is me or the self.
Me. Yeah.
But when
So
we
if we can
recognize,
practice relaxing that sense of self, if we can practice acting selflessly, if we can practice having a non-grasping, constricted, self-oriented relationship with
reality,
existence,
exactly.
if we can practice relaxing the borders of ourselves, so we have an inclusive idea of the Dharmakaya that we are ultimately a part of.
Excellent.
The
Exactly.
Dharmakaya is not dying, is it?
No. No, the full body of the Dhamma, the planet Earth will do just fine. Thank you very much. In fact, all of the planting of the trees that they were doing across many areas, including Northern Africa and China, and even in the Middle East, that just proves that within time, all we need to do is just take humans out of those deserts, take the goats off of the deserts with the humans, and the deserts will bloom again, all by themselves. That the big deserts, especially the ones in China and in Central Asia, have all been manufactured by humans. But you can see the same thing happening in the United States and the Midwest, simply because of all of the buffalo that used to roam. By the millions and millions, they were just all over the place, and they were pooping and doing buffalo things all the time. And when all of them were killed off, that just completely destroyed and wrecked the ecology to the point that the windswept plains became deserts. And that desertification is still continuing on. And unlike China and unlike Africa, who have the people who live in that area out there planting trees, that's both in Senegal especially and in China, that it's the locals who are merely being encouraged by the bigger governments and given the trees and the resources, but all the work is being done by the locals. You think your average cattle farmer in Midwest Utah is going to get out there and start planting trees? I don't think so. We need to take him and the cattle off of that land, and that may take still hundreds of years for the trees to come back naturally, but they would. Everything is copacetic. You're right. The Dhammakai is healthy.
Yeah. Is that an appropriate way to relax, to kind of approach anatta, like through a wider identification with that Dharmakaya? Is that a kind of helpful way to approach it?
In a way, yes. Everything is okay. Everything's going to be all right, the song says. That there's no reason to worry. And yet here we are, an entire species of worrywarts. Because it's part of our culture. When there's really nothing to worry about, there's no problem. You don't have the Gestapo banging on your windows right now, do you? Then why do you feel like that you do? And so why is that? Because that self-preservation mechanism that we have inside got triggered. And normally it normally happens with a thought triggers the feeling, but sometimes the feeling itself comes and then the thought. But once the thought and the feeling get into a circle with each other, like anxiety and despair, that's when the ball gets really rolling.
So it's when that instinct feeds or starts an avalanche of selfing narrative and negative feeling, right? Because the instinct itself is not the problem. Like I ride my bike everywhere around London, and a car comes too close to me, or something happens. That instinct sparks, and it produces
Keeps you alive.
and it keeps you alive. Yeah, But then if I then spent the next couple of hours going, oh my gosh, I can't believe that person did that to me, and yeah.
That's exactly right. You don't have to do that. You can use that self-preservation mechanism to do its job, and when
In
it's
the
finished,
moment,
put it away. It's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You kept me alive that moment. I'm glad you're doing your job. Now shut up and sit down.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, that's exactly the way that we do it. So there are times when we need these instincts. They keep us alive, but they also keep us on guard when there's no reason to be on guard. And it all happens subconsciously without our noticing it, because the brain is often in la la land because it's not getting enough oxygen anyway. But when we take a deep breath and watch what's going on, we can recognize this present moment is a pretty darn nice moment. The Dhammakaya is quite well. Thank you. Yeah, I just watched. There it is. Wow. That it's the individual that instead of processing the real right now, in the processing of it, we add old stuff. This is the Sankara, the old stuff that gets mixed in with the processing to figure out what's actually happening right now winds up being somewhat distorted. When we learn to process the here now, then the result of the Salayatana is going to be the here now, which is that other kind of consciousness. Okay. The other kind of consciousness is the sense consciousness. What we actually sense out there is not what we deal with. We deal with a processed sense consciousness on the inside, a different kind of consciousness.
Yes. So it's a difference between essentially like the raw data and how that data is like put together into the Salayatana, the kind of the construct or the idea. Yeah.
And that's what impacts us. We don't live in the real world. Every human being lives in an imaginary world. And the closer that imaginary world is to actual reality, then the less suffering there is and the less self there is. Because in the reality out here, there's no me.
And in the meantime, and in order to get from A to B, like the raft of the kind of classic story or metaphor that the Buddha used is like these concepts that we can skillfully, it's like the thorn to remove a thorn, right? Like we use concepts like non-self or impermanence as a lens, a way of seeing that will ultimately get us further away from this fabrication and closer towards this reality, and in the process allow us to greatly reduce our suffering and suffering of other people.
And our new concepts are much closer to actual reality anyway.
Yes.
And so the likelihood of us processing next time is good. This is what we mean by building up a skill, is our data bank starts to get better and better as we get away from the old stuff. We start living in the much more in the present, much more in the here now, and less in the old ways that we used to process. We've allowed those old habits to die out. An example of that is I couldn't play the piano at all now. I know because we've got one in the house. And something like Moonlight Sonata is completely lost to me. I couldn't give you 3 bars of it. It's gone. It's a skill that's completely lost. If I can lose the Moonlight Sonata that I spent so much time on, I can get rid of any old bad feeling. That's part of the confidence. There's something that used to be really, really important. We spent a lot of time with, and now it's gone.
It's interesting that, because most people construe that that for many people would be construed as like a negative thing, but actually it's the flip side of the very positive, or the much more obviously positive aspect of impermanence, which is that, or letting go, which is that we can let go of the bad stuff, let go of the unhelpful stuff, of the stuff that keeps us in misery.
Exactly. Because the reality is I don't need to play the piano. I don't need the piano. I don't need to play the piano to be happy, because I wasn't happy when I played the piano. But I could say, look how hard I tried.
Mm.
And so yeah, that's a really important way of looking at it, that yes, we can change. The choice is ours. We can either live by the old habits or by the old karma. Bhikkhu Buddhadasa actually points it to, in the sense of with the Asians especially, about how wrapped up they are in the theory of karma.
Mm.
And Bhikkhu Buddhadasa's point then is just, okay, forget about it. Okay, the choice is yours. Either be subject to your old karma or stop, which is for many Asians quite a stark surprise.
Mm.
For many Westerners, it just doesn't make any sense. But the reality is that we do have a choice. We can either live by the old way, or we can formulate a new one based upon wisdom. In short, we can grow up.
Mm.
And by doing that, we can help our family grow up.
Mm.
Just by being grown up, we can set an example of what it's like to be grown up.
Mm. It's a great spur to practice, actually, is I find the responsibility of parenthood, because it's, yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
So, are you up to the task? Yeah, I can do it. That's it. That's the question. Are you up to it? The answer is yes. Yeah, we can do this.
Mm.
Well, go do it then. Let's see what happens.
I will do my best.
Okay, go
Absolutely.
go check it out. Let's see
Okay.
what it's like. You can change your relationship with your kids in this way, because you've already started to change in the sense of giving it all to the wife. Now you're the big cheese in the house because you don't get involved in the kinds of things that the wife cares about. Whatever she cares about, that's her business. Your job is to be the big cheese here.
It's both of our jobs. We're both on this journey together.
That's Sangha for you.
Yeah.
I haven't seen her. You haven't brought her to the
No,
screen.
no, no, no. Well,
No,
you
no,
know.
no, 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 no. I hear that.
No, maybe I should. Maybe you should have a chat with her. It'd be interesting for
I'd love
her.
to. That would be
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Up to you. Choice is yours and hers.
And
But
us,
it's
yeah,
and it's up to you to introduce it. But it's up to her to say yes or no.
yeah.
So, um, but that's part of being the lion. Part of being the lion is letting the others. In fact, uh, this is actually something that I uh, kind of believe, and that is that when a leader, say, of a pack who is out scavenging or hunting, and they're nomads, that the leader of the pack, in fact, will be in charge of the carcass. But he's not. But if he eats first, he'll lose status. That the job of the leader of the pack is to let them share and give each person an opportunity to come in, and that then the leader gets the last part. That he doesn't take his share first, he waits until the last, and that they have begun to piece that together about archaeology, that humans have done that all along. That's what distinguished right from the very beginning what was a good leader and what was
Mm.
not.
That's a good rubric to hold up to a lot of today's leaders, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. All right. Dhammarato, thank you enormously for your time today.
I
Look
loved
after
it. This is
yourself.
great.
Yeah.
I'll let the dogs do that. They don't let anybody on the porch.
Okay. All
That's
right.
not true. They let anybody on the porch that we want on the porch, but They've got to get that permission from us. Otherwise, they're the dogs. They're doing their job. We'll see you later, Matt. This has been a
Okay.
really nice talk. I've enjoyed.
Thank you very much. Speak soon.